Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be looking at the SEC for the 2024 college football season. So we already looked at the ACC, Big 12, and Big 10. Make sure you go check those out. Those three videos are out on the channel right now. So this is the final of the Power 4 conferences that we're going to be looking at. Tomorrow we're going to give you our 12-team playoff prediction, and then on Friday we're going to give our top 25 for this season. So yeah, very exciting stuff. Not only do we do college football, we also do college basketball, NBA, NFL. NFL will be starting very soon. MLB, we're well into our series that we do for that. So if you're interested in any of that, go down there, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notices to make sure you don't miss when we post one of those things. And like this video if you enjoyed. As always, in the description, we got a couple links there. X, make sure you follow that and post on there every day. Twitch, TikTok, content will be coming soon on those platforms. And then Discord, make sure you join that. But with all that being said, let's get into the team that I think will place first in the SEC, at least regular season-wise. And no surprise here, but I do believe the Georgia Bulldogs will be placing first in the SEC regular season. Now, we're going to do our SEC championship game prediction, but we'll do that at the end, so we'll go through all 16 teams and then take a look at that. But yeah, I mean, it's Georgia, man. They're just loaded once again. Carson Beck at QB, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, if not the best. You can make an argument. And yeah, they're just loaded with talent. You know, as always, bring in Trevor Etienne in the backfield. That is a huge addition. Offensive line-wise, they're going to be amazing. Malachi Starks on the defense with Michael Williams, too, edge rusher. Yeah, I mean, they're just a loaded team. We know this. Kirby Smart, probably with Saban gone, probably the best coach in the country. Yeah, they're just insanely talented. Dominic Lovett at receiver, he's a guy to look out for. The defense is going to be insane. The trench play, literally everything. So let's look at the schedule. So, starting off in week 1, they don't have an easy game, and their schedule, I will give it to them, their schedule is very tough, so I actually would not be surprised if they did end up losing one of these games in the regular season. A lot of people are saying 12-0. I've seen some people saying 11-1. I do think they beat Clemson week 1, though. If it was away, it might be a little bit of a closer one for me, but even if it was in Clemson, I'd probably still take Georgia. That's just how good they are. I think they beat Tennessee Tech at Kentucky. I don't think they have any problems there. Coming out of the bye week at Alabama. Now, I'm telling you right now, if Saban was still here, I'd probably go Alabama in this game if I'm being 100% honest with you. And I know Kalen DeBoer is an amazing head coach. He's like 104-12 or something as a head coach, which is insane. But I think head coach-wise, Kirby Smart gets the edge a little bit. They're coming out of the bye. It is on the road, which is very tough. But coming out of the bye, I think they're well rested. I think they're well repaired. I do think they beat Alabama. I did think about taking Bama here, though. These next two games are gimmies for me. Another very tough game. All of their games that I think they have a chance to lose are on the road, so that is definitely interesting. I think Alabama, Texas, and Ole Miss are three toughest games. They also played Clemson and Tennessee, so yeah, like I said, their schedule is not easy. And at Texas, this one I really did think about as well. But again, I think it just comes down to coaching. I think defensively they're a lot better than Texas is. Offensively, they probably are. Honestly, they're probably better offensively too. So I'm going to take Georgia. But yeah, I think it just comes down to coaching here at this point. I mean, again, it is on the road, but Georgia's just so talented. I don't think there's going to be any game where they're outmatched talent-wise and roster-wise this season. Home against Florida, I think they'll win. At Ole Miss, definitely could see it. Ole Miss is one of those teams they bring back so much this year. It's probably Lane Kiffin's most talented team he's ever had. They also have the home game against Tennessee, a little bit of a rivalry game. This could be a trap game, but like I said, Kirby Smart, I think he is the best coach in the country. I don't think they're losing this game, as you know, and this is a very tough two-game stretch. But I think they come out at 2-0, and ultimately I think they do finish the regular season 12-0. It's hard to pick them to lose if we're being honest. Their team is that solid. So I do have Georgia going 12-0. But now looking at our next team, the team that I think will face Georgia in the SEC championship game, maybe a surprise to some people. A lot of people I've seen saying Bama. I've seen a lot of Bama. I've seen a lot of Texas. But I actually have Ole Miss. I've been playing Ole Miss here in the championship game. So yeah, taking a look at Ole Miss, Jackson Dart comes back at quarterback for them. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Trey Harris at receiver. They got some guys defensively. Walter Nolan at D tackle. He's a very good player. Trey Amos at corner. They got a lot of guys on the outside. Jordan Watkins and Antoine Wells Jr. at receiver. That's a great duo right there. Along with Trey Harris. I mean, their team is just absolutely loaded. They got a plethora of guys on offense. They do lose Quinshon Judkins, which is a little disappointing if you're an Ole Miss fan, just because that would really complete this offense. But I do think this is Lane Kiffin's most talented team he's ever had. And I think they're in for a very good season. So looking at their schedule, I don't see any of these games giving them any troubles at all. I think they start out with a nice 4-0. At home against Kentucky, I think that will be a win. I think talent-wise, they're just overall the better team here. At South Carolina, kind of same deal. This is their one of their two real tough games because their schedule is pretty easy. At LSU and then home against Georgia. At LSU, again, this is a very tough game. It's a rivalry game in LSU. It's not an easy place to play. Probably the hardest place to play in the country, if we're being honest, at least in my opinion. I've been back and forth on this, but it's hard to go against LSU here at home. This probably will be a night game. They beat Ole Miss last year. But they don't have Jaden Daniels. They don't have Malik Neighbors. They don't have Brian Thomas. They lose so much. Ole Miss brings back so much. I do think Ole Miss actually wins this game going into the bye. So starting the season 7-0, and I think they don't slow down. I think they beat Oklahoma at home. I think they win at Arkansas. I do think they're going to lose to Georgia, but I think they finish out the season here 11-1, 7-1 in conference, setting up a date in the SEC championship with the aforementioned Georgia Bulldogs. But looking at our next team, we're going to look at the Texas Longhorns. So, yeah, I could see Texas for sure making the SEC championship game. I wouldn't call you crazy at all. There's a reason they're ranked 4th in the AP poll right now. And there's a reason 4 of the top 6 in the AP poll is SEC. This is the best conference in the country. But looking at Texas, Quinn Ewers comes back at QB. They bring in Isaiah Bond from Alabama. That is a huge addition. I think defensive-wise, they're going to be a lot better than they were last year. Malik Muhammad at corner. Andrew Mukaba at free safety. They got a very good tackle in Kelvin Banks Jr. This is a very, very solid team. Anthony Hill Jr. at outside linebacker, CJ Baxter at running back. This is a very complete team. Very, very, very solid team. I think they win week 1 against Colorado State. I don't see them having any issues here. At Michigan, this is a very tough game. But I said it yesterday in my Big Ten preview. I probably would go with Michigan if it wasn't for the fact that Alex Orji is just so unproven. We have no idea what we're going to get from him. In the Big House, it's tough to go against Michigan, but I do think quarterback-wise, Quinn Ewers is just the far superior quarterback, and I think who do I trust if you need a drive to win the game? Quinn Ewers or Alex Orji, and I know Michigan's defense is better than Texas's defense, but I don't think Michigan's defense and Texas' defense is as big of a gap as Quinn Ewers and Alex Orji, if that makes any sense. So I do think Texas beats Michigan. I think they win these next 3 games, no problems at all. Coming out of the bye, huge trap game. At Oklahoma, Red River rivalry with a home game against Georgia next week. I could totally see this happening. I actually had this predicted, but I changed it last second. I'm going to go with Texas. I'm going to trust that they just, talent-wise, they're just a far superior team than the Sooners are this season. I think, again, quarterback-wise, Quinn Ewers is one of the best in the country right now. I do think they'll beat Oklahoma, but I do think they're going to lose to Georgia. They could definitely beat Georgia. If there's any game for Georgia to lose, actually, no. I'll say I think Georgia could either lose at Alabama or at Texas, so I guess if there's any game for Georgia to lose, it is this game, but I do think Georgia will win. They're going to win at Vanderbilt. They'll win home against Florida. They'll win at Arkansas. They'll win home against Kentucky. At Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a pretty good team. The rivalry game, it's back. I do think Texas wins, though. Finishing with an 11-1 record. 7-1 in conference. And yeah. I don't know why it has Texas at second. I think this website said it had NFL playoff tiebreakers, so that's probably why. I'm just saying that, but I do think Ole Miss will play Georgia in the SEC championship game. But looking at our next team, we're going to look at the Crimson Tide. So Jalen Milroe comes back. Now, obviously, the story is no more Nick Saban. They bring in Kalen DeBoer from Washington, and if there's any guy to take on the job, honestly, he is the guy to do it. I mean, this team is going to be very, very good. Like I said, Jalen Milroe at quarterback. They have a loaded offensive line, one of the best in the country. Malachi Moore at free safety. Deontay Lawson at linebacker. They're a very good team. Caden Proctor is also on the offensive line. I mean, their offensive line is insane. Jam Miller at running back is going to be very solid. Domani Jackson at corner. Justice Haynes at running back. I mean, it's Alabama. They have a load of talent, as always. And I think Jalen Milroe could win Heisman. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Honestly, I guess I'll just say he wins the Heisman. I think he'll win the Heisman this year. Because I really haven't said. I think Quinn Ewers for sure could. Carson Beck could. But I think Milroe wins the Heisman. But looking at the schedule, I think they win these two first games. At Wisconsin could be a little tough, but I think they're going to win. I think they're just the superior team. Home against Georgia, could see this going either way, but I think it comes down to coaching, and I trust Kirby Smart a little bit more than Kalen DeBoer, especially in his first year with the Tide. But these next two games should be easy peasy. At Tennessee, huge rivalry game here. Definitely could see Tennessee winning, but I am going to go with Alabama to win that one. Home against Missouri, this 3-game stretch is just brutal. I mean, at Tennessee, home against Missouri, they do get a bye in between, which is nice, and then at LSU. I could see this going either way. But I am going to go with Alabama. Home against Missouri. This is Missouri's toughest game, and really their only hard game on the schedule. I do think Alabama wins, though. They're at home. I think that's the difference maker. Coming out of the bye, they got to go at LSU. And I'm going with LSU. I don't think Bama comes out of this three-game stretch 3-0. I'm going to say that right now. I mean, at Tennessee, that's a tough game. Home against Missouri, it's not easy. I mean, this 3-game stretch is just brutal. I think LSU gets them here. Brian Kelly is a very good coach. I think he gets it done, especially at home, too. That's tough. But I do think they win their last 3 games. I think they'll beat Oklahoma on the road. I think they'll beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Going 10-2, 6-2 in conference, so not bad at all. I think I skipped over a team on accident. We're going to look at Missouri now. And Missouri, obviously they have the best receiver in the country in Luther Burden. Brady Cook is still there. They had a kind of just out of nowhere insane season last year. They went 10-2, beat Ohio State in the bowl game. And yeah, they're a very good team. They got a lot of weapons offensively. Like I said, Brady Cook leading the charge at quarterback. He comes back for, I'm assuming this is last year. Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, like I said, this Alabama game really is their only tough game. I guess at Texas A&M, not an easy game. So yeah, I think they'll win these first 4 games, no problems. If this was just week 5 and there wasn't a bye week, I could see A&M winning. The fact though that they get a bye before they come out of it, I do think they're gonna win. I think they're slightly better than A&M. So it will be tough to win on the road. I could see this one going either way for sure, but I am going to go with Missouri. At UMass should be no problems. Home against Auburn, I think they'll win. Home against Oklahoma coming out of the bye, I think they'll win. And then I think they win these last 3 games, going 11-1, 7-1 in conference. And yeah, having yet again a very solid season and definitely a case for playoffs. 11-1 out of the SEC. Now looking at our next team, we're going to look at LSU. So, like I said, LSU lost a lot of talent last season. This season. They lose Jaden Daniels. They lose Malik Neighbors. They lose Brian Thomas Jr. Now they still have a lot of guys. They still have the best offensive tackle in the country in Will Campbell. Probably one of the best offensive lines in the country. Emory Jones Jr. at right tackle. That is by far the best tackle duo in the country. Harold Perkins Jr. off the edge on defense. Mason Taylor at tight end. Kyron Lacey's a very good receiver. Garrett Nussmeier. I'm interested to see how he plays here. I don't think he'll be bad. He's not going to be Jaden Daniels' Heisman level. But definitely interested to see. I think the defense will be better than it was last year. I don't think it will be great because I don't think they can turn it around that quick. But I do think it will be better than it was last season. I do think the offense will take a step back. But looking at their schedule, I think they win home against USC week 1. I think they'll win these next 4 games pretty handedly. Going 5-0 to start. Coming out of the bye, I do think they lose at home against Ole Miss. I think they beat Arkansas on the road, but I do think they lose at Texas A&M. I don't think this LSU team will be better than they were last year. Maybe record-wise they will be better just because of the schedule isn't crazy. They have Ole Miss, A&M, and Alabama. Besides that, though, they should definitely win all those games, and I haven't beating Alabama. I don't think... I think if you get 1 game out of these 3 games, I think that's probably accurate for LSU. Now, I could see them winning this game and potentially losing to Alabama, but I think it goes like this. I do think they'll win though these last 3 games, putting them at 10-2. So I guess I have their record being better than they were last year, but I ultimately do think as a team they'll take a little bit of a step back. 10-2, 6-2 in conference, not a bad season whatsoever for LSU. But now looking at our next team, another team with some pretty significant changes, the Tennessee Volunteers. So last year I'm pretty sure they went 8-4. They got the best defensive player in the country in my opinion, James Pierce Jr., right end. He switched to right end this season. He is going to be an absolute monster on the D-line for them. Squirrel White still there at receiver. Brew McCoy at receiver. They got Dylan Sampson at running back. And Nico Iamaleva. I'm not sure how you say his name, but I will tell you this guy is going to be very good from what I've seen. He's a freshman. He is massive, 6'6", 210 pounds. He's got a pretty big arm on him. And yeah, he's going to be a very good player. Definitely an improvement from Joe Milton. Yeah, I think he's going to be very good, and I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. I wouldn't be surprised if his junior year he wins the Heisman. I think he's going to be that good. Now, their success this season kind of relies pretty heavily on him. but similar to Nebraska in a sense, because I think Dylan Raiola, it relies pretty heavily on, if he's bad, they won't be very good. If he's good, I think they can be very good. So pretty direct correlation here from the QB play to the team play. But I think it's kind of the same boat for Tennessee. Now maybe a little bit less because Tennessee I think is a lot more talented than Nebraska. But they are in the SEC, so they will have a little bit of a tougher schedule. But looking at their schedule, I think they win these first 3 games at Oklahoma early in the season. This is going to be a tough game for Nico, but he says he likes road games. He's like I don't know. He says he likes playing on the road more than at home. Never heard anyone say that before. I think Tennessee wins. And I think they start out their season 6-0. I think they should have no problems here. I do think they lose their first game home against Alabama. I just think they're a little bit outmatched here in this one. Nico's first real big game, I guess. I guess this at Oklahoma is pretty tough. But I think coming out of the bye, they win these next 2 games. I don't think there's any chance they beat Georgia on the road, but I do think they win these last 2 no problems. They have a pretty manageable schedule, and 10-2. Honestly, I could see their ceiling 11-1, their floor probably 9-3. Their schedule is very favorable. So I'm going 10-2, 6-2 in conference, and this just shows you how good the SEC is. I mean, look at this: 12-0, 11-1, 11-1, 11-1, 10-2, 10-2, 10-2. I mean, if there wasn't, they're not going to get all 7 of these teams in. But, I mean, maybe, no, they won't get all 7 of them in. But, like, you can make a case, man. You really could. Yeah, they're not going to get all of the at-large bids in the 12-team playoffs because there's 4 conference championships. There's 1 group of 5 team. So they're not going to get, well, I guess they only need to get 6. So maybe I don't think all 7 of these teams get in, though. We'll save that for tomorrow's video. But now looking at our next team, we have Texas A&M. So they made it. They snuck into the AP poll this season once again. A lot of people aren't very happy about it. Connor Weigman at quarterback, I think, will be interesting. I'm interested to see how this goes. He injured himself last season. I think he's in for a pretty good season. Talent-wise, they're going to be very solid. They have one of the best home field advantages in the country. No more Jimbo Fisher. So that is obviously a plus. They're still going to have to pay him just because of the ridiculous contract they gave him. They got a really good running back duo, Reuben Owens and Le'Veon Moss in the backfield. That is very scary. I think this team will be very good this season. And their first game, home against Notre Dame. Now, I haven't looked at Notre Dame yet. I've predicted probably almost all their games, just haven't looked at them specifically. I think Texas A&M wins this game at home. Week 1, I think they come out fired up, ready to go. I think Notre Dame will start off a little bit slow, not necessarily lose a lot of games early, but I think they'll struggle a little bit early and then pick it up as the season goes on. I think A&M gets it done week 1 against Notre Dame. I really do. They're at home. That's a huge thing for me. I think they beat McNeese. I think they'll win at Florida. I think they win these 2 games. Starting off 5-0, I do think their first loss comes at the hands of the Missouri Tigers, but I think coming out of the bye, they respond with 3 very solid wins here. Like I said, I do think they beat LSU at home. Coming off their second bye, they got New Mexico State. Should be no problems here. At Auburn, they're going to lose this game. I'm telling you right now, it's a trap game. They're going to be looking ahead to the rivalry game, home against Texas. They got at Auburn. Auburn's not a bad team. Sneaky good team on the road. I'm telling you right now, I'm seeing through the lines. This will be an Auburn win. Something's telling me. I got a feeling. But I got the Aggies going 9-3, 5-3 in conference. And if I'm an A&M fan, I'm pretty happy about this, if I'm being honest. This would be a pretty solid season for them. I think 9-3 is. Yeah, I think 9-3 is probably their ceiling. Maybe 10-2, maybe. Um, I think their floor probably is 7-5. I could see them going 7-5. But now looking at our next team, we have the Kentucky Wildcats. And they have an interesting team. They got some guys, Deion Walker on defense, Maxwell Hairston on defense, Dane Key at receiver, along with Barron Brown. Um, Now, QB wise, Brock Vandegrift. I don't know if he was their QB last year. I'm assuming he was. Um, Now they're not gonna have their elite running back. What's his name? I'm forgetting his name. Um, just know they had a very good running back last year. Um, so he's gone, but they bring in Diamante Trainum to replace him. He's not going to be as good, but he is a guy that they have. I think this Kentucky team will be solid. Nothing crazy, but I think the schedule isn't terrible. I know I have them going 0-4 already, but I think this will be a win. I think they'll win home against South Carolina. There's just no way they beat Georgia. I think they'll beat Ohio at Ole Miss. Sorry, it's not happening. Home against Vanderbilt. I think that'll be a win. At Florida, I think talent-wise, Florida edges them out. I think that's in the swamp. I think Florida wins. Home against Auburn, though, talent-wise, I think Auburn has them, but I think Kentucky wins. I don't think they lose these two games back-to-back. But these are pretty even compared to Kentucky in my eyes. At Tennessee, don't think they'll win that, but I think they win home against Murray State. I don't think they're beating Texas on the road, especially not with this game looming, because this is really the game that Kentucky fans care about, the big rivalry game. I do think they'll win that. So I'm going 7-5, 3-5 in conference, and yeah, making a pretty solid bowl game here with this record. The next team we're going to look at is Auburn. Now, Auburn's always an interesting team, pretty hard to predict in my eyes because they're always going to have a lot of talent, and they're always going to look pretty solid on paper. But how good are they seriously? Jarquez Hunter at running back is a name to know. He is a very, very good back. Defensively, they have two outside linebackers, Eugene Asante and Jalen McLeod. Yeah, they have some talent. Now this out of conference is actually pretty easy. I think they'll win all three of these games. And I do think they'll win home against Arkansas. I just think talent-wise they're much better. Home against Oklahoma, I could see this going either way. I do think Oklahoma is slightly better though, so I'm going to take Oklahoma here. At Georgia, no shot. Coming out of the bye, at Missouri and at Kentucky. This is a brutal four-game stretch here for Auburn. I think they lose all four, but I think they beat Vanderbilt. Coming out of the bye, I think they'll beat UL Monroe, no problems. I do think they'll beat Texas A&M at home. I have them getting one of these games. And yeah, I could see them winning. I feel like Auburn's always a team that will win one of the games they shouldn't. Same with like Kentucky and Florida and teams like this in the SEC. But unfortunately, I don't think they're gonna beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl, especially not on the road. And Alabama is just the much far superior team. So I think Auburn goes 7-5 though, 3-5 in conference, getting into a bowl game. So there's that, I guess. But looking at our next team, we're gonna look at the Sooners now. People aren't gonna like this, and I'm sorry. I already have them going 1-6. But take a look at the schedule, man. I mean, just look at it for a second. They could realistically lose this game against Auburn. I wouldn't be shocked if they do. I have them winning. I think this non-conference is pretty easy. I think they'll start out 3-0. Home against Tennessee, though, they could win. It is early in the season. I could see them winning this game for sure. I don't think they do. I think Tennessee is the better team here. No more Dylan Gabriel for Oklahoma. Now they have Jackson Arnold. Um, yeah, I don't think they're gonna beat Tennessee. I just think talent-wise, Tennessee is the better team here. Um, I mean, Oklahoma's got some guys: Billy Bowman, Danny Stutzman, Deion Burks. But yeah, I don't think they're going to beat Tennessee. At Auburn, I do have them winning. Home against Texas, I could see it. I really could. This is one that could go either way as well. I'm going to go with Texas. Home against South Carolina, I think that will be a win. At Ole Miss, I don't think they have a real chance there. They'll beat Maine, though. But then at Missouri, coming out of the bye, they play Alabama and then at LSU. I'm going 6-6. Pains me to say this. Because I don't think they're a 6-6 level team. I think they would beat a team that's like a 9-3 Big 12 team or like a 9-3 ACC team. Like I think they could beat like a. I'm trying to give an example. I think they could beat like a West Virginia, an Iowa State. Like I don't know who do I have pretty solid. NC State maybe they could beat NC State for sure. They could beat Virginia Tech, probably they could probably beat Virginia Tech. Honestly, I would probably pick them to beat Virginia Tech, and I'm going 9-3. I'm pretty sure they could beat SMU. I have SMU going 10-2. Um, yeah. So this team, unfortunately, they got one of the hardest schedules in the country. Maybe not the hardest. There is a team coming up here that potentially got an even harder schedule, and that team is the Florida Gators. Now, similar to Oklahoma, they got a lot of talent. They also lose talent, but I mean they lose some every year, just because of the way they recruit, and that's going to be the Florida Gators. Now, Florida's an interesting team this year because I think Graham Mertz will be better than he was last year, just with another year of experience. And they got some guys at the skill positions. Montrell Johnson at running back. They lose Trevor Etienne, which is a pretty big loss to Georgia. But Eugene Wilson and Elijah Badger at receivers. That's a pretty solid receiving core defensively. They have a pretty good secondary, honestly. Um, they definitely have some strength. They definitely have some weaknesses. People don't like this that I picked this game. I think Florida wins week 1 home against Miami. I think they do. I think in the swamp, Cam Ward's still getting used to the new team, still getting adjusted. I think Florida wins. I really picked this game because I just can't see Miami going 12-0. I feel like this is the most logical game they could lose on the road week 1 against Florida. They'll still have the fans will all be there. They'll still be ready for the season. And there's no way they lose every single one of these hard games. Um, so I think Florida wins. I think they'll beat Samford. Don't think they'll beat A&M. I do think they'll beat Mississippi State though. I definitely do think they're going to beat Mississippi State. And then coming out of the bye, I think they beat UCF at home. At Tennessee, unfortunately, I don't think they win. Home against Kentucky, I did give them the win there. These are two teams that I feel like are pretty even skill wise. So the fact that it's in the swamp, I'll give it to Florida. At Georgia, at Texas, LSU, and Ole Miss. That is a brutal. I mean, in this game too, they're not winning at Florida State. I'm sorry. I'm going 5-7. And I mean, this schedule is just absurd. Look at these last 5 weeks. You're playing. Look, I mean, just look in the AP poll. This is the number 1 team, the number 4 team, I believe the number 6 team. These two are in like the 10 through 15 range. They also have A&M and Miami, who are also ranked, and Tennessee on the road, who's also ranked. So they have 8 ranked teams. Like I said, I don't think there's with just the talent they have. Graham Mertz is experienced. I feel like one of these games they have to win. I feel like this is the most logical, if I'm being honest. This Miami game, maybe Texas A&M, maybe they could win that game. It's also at home, so that's the other game I could potentially give it to them. I think their ceiling is honestly 6-6. With this schedule, I just don't see anything better than that. Floor, I'd say 4-8. I don't think they're gonna lose to any of these bad teams. Like I feel like Samford, Mississippi State. No, I'll say their floor is 3-9 because they could lose to Kentucky. So yeah, I guess a disappointing season, but with this schedule, you kind of expect it. Next team we're gonna look at is Mississippi State. Now, once we start getting to the more bad teams in every conference, I have less and less to talk about just because I don't know as much. Blake Shapen at quarterback, really don't know much about the guy. He's a senior. Mississippi State doesn't really have much going for them this season. I think they'll win these first three games out of conference. But then once we get into conference play, home against Florida, I think Florida's better. At Texas, at Georgia, home against A&M. I don't think they got any shot in those games, but I will give them 2 wins here. So putting them at 5-7, 1-7 in conference, I feel like this is realistic. They have a pretty tough schedule. They can maybe win this game. I think their ceiling's probably 6-6, floor 3-9, probably. So that's what I got for Mississippi State. Looking at our next team, it's going to be the Gamecocks of South Carolina. So no more Spencer Rattler. That's a pretty big loss. But they have some pretty solid players. Raheem Sanders at running back. He is a guy I know. Debo Williams at linebacker. They have the glitchiest player in college football, 25, Nick Harbor at receiver. He's like 6'5". He has a 99 speed in the game. It's ridiculous. QB wise, I actually am not sure who they have at QB. That just goes to show it's probably nobody good. I think they'll beat Old Dominion. I don't think they're winning at Kentucky or home against LSU. I think they'll beat Akron though. This stretch is tough. They're not beating Ole Miss. They're not beating Alabama. They're not winning at Oklahoma. I don't think they're going to beat A&M. I think they'll beat Vanderbilt. I think they'll beat Wofford. They're not going to beat Clemson, though. I'm going 4-8. A lot of the bad teams in the SEC have just brutal schedules. Yeah, I got them going 4-8. Ceiling, maybe 6-6. Maybe. Floor, probably, I don't know, 3-9. Yeah, there's like I said, I say this every video. There's got to be some teams at the bottom. Arkansas is going to be the team we'll look at next. Again, I don't really know too much about Arkansas. I know I have Taylon Green at QB. I don't know much about him. Landon Jackson is an edge rusher there. He's pretty solid. Jaquindon Jackson at running back. He's a pretty good player. Andrew Armstrong, receiver. They're honestly more talented than maybe they're probably more talented than South Carolina, probably more talented than Mississippi State. But I feel like the schedule this, you know what? I'll switch this game. I think Arkansas will beat Mississippi State. I think they'll beat Pine Bluff. They're not going to beat OSU on the road, Oklahoma State that is. UAB will be a win. At Auburn, though, at A&M, those are all tough games. They're not going to beat Tennessee or LSU. I think they'll beat Mississippi State. I just think talent-wise, they're a little bit better. Home against Ole Miss, no. Coming out of the bye, home against Texas, no way. They'll beat Louisiana Tech, and then at Missouri, I don't think so. Their ceiling, they could beat Auburn. I think their ceiling's probably 5-7, floor probably 3-9. There's not much wiggle room for them. I really don't see anything special happening from the season with them. And the last team, no surprise here. Last team we're going to talk about is Vanderbilt at the bottom of the conference once again. C.J. Taylor is a strong safety. He's really the only good player on their team. I think Virginia Tech will win week 1. I think Vanderbilt can win these 2 games. At Missouri is going to be a loss. Home against Alabama is going to be a loss. At Kentucky, it's going to be a loss. I think they'll beat Ball State. But Texas at Auburn, South Carolina at LSU, home against Tennessee. those are all going to be losses for me. Unfortunately, I'm going 3-9, 0-8 in conference, and last in the SEC. But now let's circle back and look at the SEC championship game. So Georgia, with a 12-0 record, playing Ole Miss with an 11-1 record. They played early in the season. Georgia won on the road at Ole Miss, and ultimately, I think in the SEC championship, I think it is the same outcome. Now, I always say this. I did this in the ACC video and in the Big Ten video. I had two teams that played each other in the regular season rematch, and I had the team that lost the first time around win the second time. But this time, man, I think Georgia beats them again. I think the fact that they can win on the road, this one will be a neutral site game. I think Georgia just is ultimately the best team in the country this year. I have them going 13-0, entering the playoffs, winning the SEC, beating Ole Miss. Again, what I think it comes down to is their defense is a whole lot better than Ole Miss. Offensively, I'd say they're pretty on par. Pretty even, both very, very good. Carson Beck, Jackson Dart, that would be a great game to see a second time around. But what I really think it comes down to is just coaching. I trust Kirby Smart a lot more than Lane Kiffin. I think Georgia's defense will be able to match up good enough against Ole Miss's skill positions. But yeah, I just think it comes down to coaching. I think Georgia's the best team in the country. And I think they win the SEC with a 13-0 record. I really do. So that puts Ole Miss at 11-2. Only lost us to Georgia twice. So they'll definitely have a case for the playoff. Texas at 11-1 will. Missouri will. Alabama will. LSU will. Tennessee will. The SEC is loaded once again. They're a very deep conference this year. I mean, I have 11 teams making a bowl game, and I could see Florida potentially, even with the tough schedule. I could see Arkansas and South Carolina really. Really, all these teams could be 6-6 except for Vanderbilt, I think. So yeah, that's gonna do it for the SEC season preview. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Turn on the noties to make sure you don't miss whenever we post. Like I said earlier, not only do we do college football, I know it's a pretty heavy college football week, but we do college basketball, NBA, NFL videos will be starting probably next week, honestly. This week's pretty heavily focused on college football. But yeah, NFL will be beginning next week. And then MLB, we're in the thick of that. We'll probably have a video coming out next week. Just an update on the MLB too. So make sure you turn on the noties to make sure you don't post. Links in the description. X, Twitch, TikTok, Discord. Click all those links. Follow those. Join those. Whatever you gotta do. With all that being said, though, comment what you think on these predictions. Comment your own predictions. What you disagree. What you agree with me. And yeah, I think that's all. Thank you guys for watching. And I'll see you guys tomorrow with my 12-team playoff prediction.